All right, buckle up, cricket fans, because we're diving headfirst into a match that was, well, a bit of a shocker. England versus South Africa, Champions Trophy on the line, and let's just say, the result wasn't exactly what anyone expected.
Yeah, it was quite the contrast in approaches, really. You had England, all this talent, but they kind of imploded, and then South Africa, they were just so focused, dismantling England bit by bit, almost like they were playing a different game
It
altogether.
was a proper train wreck, wasn't it? So
Mm.
England wins the toss, decides to bat first. Seems sensible enough, right?
Mm.
But then, well, things went downhill fast.
Yeah, gotta remember, ODIs are all about pacing yourself. You want to score, of course, but you gotta keep those wickets too. And England, well, they went for the big hits too early, I think, lost those key players, Root, Brooke, Livingstone, one after the other. It was like they were trying to win the whole thing in the first 15 overs.
And that final score, a measly 179 runs in a 50-over match. I mean, that's practically unheard of these days. Almost disrespectful, really. Like turning up to a marathon in flip-flops.
Yeah, it was more than just reckless batting, though. You got to give credit where it's due.
Yeah.
South Africa's bowlers, yeah, Jansen and Mulder especially, they were on fire that day. Their line, their length, everything was just spot on. And they really exploited those pitch conditions, put England under immense pressure. I mean, Jansen and Mulder each took 3 wickets, just ripped through that batting order. So yeah, it wasn't just one thing that went wrong for England. It was a combination of things. Poor shot selection, some absolutely brilliant bowling. Just, yeah, a perfect storm.
All right, so let's talk about South Africa's chase then. I mean, they made reaching that target look like a walk in the park. Dussen and Klaasen, they were just unstoppable, weren't they? Picking their moments, rotating the strike, building that partnership, oozing confidence the whole way.
It was their aggression, but controlled aggression, Dussen, he was the anchor consistently finding those gaps, keeping the scoreboard ticking over, minimizing those dot balls, and then Klaasen would come in and just explode, picking specific overs to unleash these massive shots. It was a real tag team approach. They were scoring at a good rate, but without taking those unnecessary risks. It was a masterclass, really. Controlled batting at its finest.
And even when Adil Rashid finally managed to get Klaasen out, it felt more like, well, like a minor inconvenience than a genuine breakthrough, didn't it?
Oh, absolutely. By that point, the match was pretty much done and dusted. England's collapse early on, that was the real damage. South Africa just needed to play smart, play controlled, and that's exactly what they did. Miller coming in at the end, that was just the icing on the cake. A clinical performance, start to finish, really it was.
All right, so amidst this train wreck of an England performance, there was one bright spot, one player who seemed to actually remember how to play cricket. Jofra Archer.
Ugh, Jofra Archer. Yeah, that opening spell of his, it was electric. He was bowling with real fire, mixing it up beautifully. Short balls, slower balls, those pinpoint Yorkers. It was like, for a few overs there, it felt like he might actually single-handedly pull England back from the brink.
It was valiant, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Almost heroic. But in the end, I guess it was like trying to put out a forest fire with a garden hose. The rest of England's bowling attack, well, let's just say they didn't exactly set the world on fire, did they? Overton, Mahmood, even Rashid, they all struggled.
And that's the question, isn't it? Was Archer's performance, as brilliant as it was it actually a distraction from the bigger problems in the team? Did it allow the other bowlers to kind of fade into the background? Knowing they didn't have to carry the weight, was it really a standout performance, or was it just magnified by, well, the lackluster effort from everyone else? These are the questions England need to be asking themselves. It's about more than just the technical stuff. It's about team dynamics, leadership, maybe even the mental side of things,
It was a bit like one Michelin star chef trying to salvage a dish made with, well, ingredients past their sell-by date. You can only do so much. So we've established England had a bit of a meltdown, but let's get into the meat of this deep dive. Was this just a bad day at the office, or is there something more concerning going on here?
This match, it felt like, well, like it highlighted those bigger issues that have been, brewing in English cricket for a while. That aggressive batting, sometimes a bit too reckless, the lack of proper bowling partnerships, and that inability to adapt under pressure. It's not just a one-off thing.
So it's like a wake-up call for England? That moment where you realize you've hit the snooze button one too many times and you really need to make some changes?
Could be. Could be. But the real question is, will they actually listen to that alarm? I mean, the talent's there, no doubt, but talent alone, it's not enough. It's that spark, that hunger, that belief that they can dominate. It's like they've become a bit too complacent, maybe, relying on past glories instead of pushing themselves, evolving.
Yeah, it's like they've gotten too comfy in that favorite armchair, forgetting that to actually win, you got to be out there, hustling, training, constantly trying to get better.
Exactly. And that's where leadership comes in.
Oh,
The
yeah.
captain, the coach, the senior players, they need to instill that urgency, that drive. It's about creating a culture where every player is challenged to push their limits, to try new things, to be okay with being a bit uncomfortable. That's where you grow. That's where champions are made.
So we're talking about a full system reboot here, not just a few minor adjustments.
Yeah, pretty much. Back to the drawing board. Reassess those strategies, figure out those weaknesses, and build a team that's more than just the sum of its parts. You need that accountability, where everyone takes ownership, learns from mistakes, and supports each other through the ups and downs.
It's like they got to rediscover that fire, that instinct to compete, to win. Because right now it feels like, well, like those embers are fading fast.
And that's the thing about complacency. It sneaks up on you.
Yeah.
Slowly erodes your edge, your drive, and by the time you realize it, well, it might be too late.
So is there hope for England then?
Yeah.
Can they reignite that flame, or is this the start of, well, a downward spiral?
It's hard to say for sure. I mean, this loss, it could be a turning point, a chance to really change things, but it could also be, well, the beginning of the end. Time will tell, I guess.
Speaking of winners, we got to talk about South Africa. Absolutely stellar performance, like a well-conducted orchestra, every instrument in perfect harmony, creating this symphony of cricketing brilliance.
What really impressed me was that blend of experience and youthful energy. You've got those veterans, Dussen, Miller, providing that stability, guiding those younger players, and then those young guns, Jansen and Mulder, bringing that raw passion, that fearlessness.
And they weren't afraid to take those risks, to play aggressively. But it was always controlled. They knew their strength. They exploited England's weaknesses, and they never let the pressure get to them. It was a masterclass in how to approach a big match.
Oh, and their fielding. They were like hawks out there, diving, sliding, taking some unbelievable catches, saved crucial runs, and put that pressure right back on England. It was true team performance, Everyone contributed. Everything was clicking.
Okay, so we've talked about England's struggles and South Africa's brilliance. So let's zoom out a bit and look at the tournament as a whole. With that win, South Africa, they clinched the top spot in Group B, secured their place in the semifinals. They'll be facing the runner-up from Group A. And then Australia, they also made it out of Group B. They're going up against the winner of that India-New Zealand match happening tomorrow. It's shaping up to be a pretty thrilling semifinal stage, wouldn't you say?
Oh, absolutely. 4 incredibly strong teams, each with their own style, their own strengths. South Africa's efficiency, Australia's power, India's batting, and New Zealand, they've got that all-around talent. At this point, it's anyone's game.
A battle of the Titans, for sure. And even though England's, well, out of the running, their exit, it's given us a lot to think about, hasn't it? It's a reminder that even the best teams can stumble, that reputations don't mean much when the pressure's on, and that the cricket, well, it's constantly changing. You got to adapt to stay ahead.
And sometimes, those stumbles, those defeats, they can be the most valuable lessons. They make you re-examine your assumptions, question your strategies, and ultimately to learn and grow. England's journey in this tournament, it might be over, but their story, their evolution as a team, well, that's far from finished. This defeat, it could be that spark that ignites a real transformation, a chance to rebuild, to come back stronger than ever.
Or it could be the beginning of the end. The final chapter in a glorious era. Yeah. Only time will tell, I suppose. But one thing's for sure, the world of cricket will be watching, waiting to see what England does next. So as we wrap up this deep dive into, well, England's early exit, what are the big takeaways? What can other teams learn from all this?
Adaptability. I think that's the key word here. And South Africa, they really showed us how it's done. Their batting, calculated, their bowling was aggressive, varied, and that fielding, top-notch. They read the game, adjusted their approach, and executed their plan perfectly. England, on the other hand, it's like they were stuck in one mode, trying to force their usual style onto a situation that needed something different, you know?
Yeah, it was like they brought a sledgehammer to a chess match.
Yeah.
Raw power alone wasn't going to cut it this time.
Exactly. Cricket, it's always evolving, and those teams that can't adapt, they get left behind. And this Champions Trophy, it's been great to see all these different teams, different approaches, like New Zealand, the way they've used their spin bowlers to control those middle overs, or Australia. Yeah, they had some hiccups early on, but they found ways to win even when they weren't at their best.
It's a good reminder that there's no magic formula in cricket. You got to read those conditions, figure out your strengths, your weaknesses, and then tailor your game plan accordingly.
Absolutely. And it's not just about the technical stuff, you know, it's that mental resilience too. Staying calm under pressure, bouncing back from those setbacks, making the right decisions when the game's on the line. South Africa, they were brilliant at that. Patient, even when England threatened to come back, and then boom, they seized those opportunities.
So final thoughts then on England's future. Is this the end of an era, or can they bounce back, reclaim their place at the top?
It's a real turning point for them, that's for sure. They've got the talent, but they need to take a good, hard look at themselves, at their approach, and make some tough choices. Stick with the current style, or try something new, a change in leadership maybe, fresh perspective. These are the questions England need to be asking themselves right now.
It's like a company that's been successful for years, but suddenly they're struggling to keep up. They need to innovate, adapt, maybe even reinvent themselves to stay in the game.
The good news for England is, well, they've got the resources, the infrastructure, and they've got the talent. But it's going to take some soul-searching, some tough conversations, and a willingness to change.
Well, that's certainly something to ponder, isn't it? England's future, it's hanging in the balance. But as we've seen in this tournament, cricket, it's full of surprises. Who knows? Who knows what's next? This Champions Trophy, it's been a real roller coaster, and it's not over yet. We've still got those semifinals. 4 incredible teams all vying for that trophy.
So keep watching, keep analyzing, and keep those deep dives going. The world of cricket, it's full of fascinating stories, and we'll be here to break them down for you. Until next time.